from each happily ever after, every wish upon a star. Let's break down the movies that shaped who we are, from memory lane to now and everything in between. The most famous of films to the ones we've never seen. Decade by decade, all the times we laughed and cried, and with a little pixie dust, they will all take flight, reliving the feelings, and we're trying our very best. And if they mean the same to you, please be our guest. So hop aboard, we would love to have you as we hang with a certain mouth, the whole gang too. If you love nostalgia stuff, we hope this does the trick. Thanks for joining us as we deep dive the magic.
Hi, and welcome back to the Deep Diving the Magic podcast. I'm KJ.
And I'm Jeffrey. And we hope that everybody is having a very lovely Valentine's Day. And speaking of holidays, today's film is from December 25th, Christmas. So today's film is the 68th Disney feature-length film from, like I said, from Christmas Day, December 25th, 1963. It is The Sword in the Stone. The Sword in the Stone is a return of the animated classics. Our first animated classics since 101 Dalmatians. It is based on a novel of the same name by T.H. White. And it is also, that was published in 1938. And it was also in his book series, The Once and Future King. Do you have any thoughts and synopsis about The Sword in the Stone before we start diving into it?
Yep. A poor boy named Arthur learns the power of love, kindness, knowledge, and bravery with the help of a wizard called Merlin, and the path to become one of the most beloved kings in English history.
Yeah, that synopsis is more in-depth than this film is. Sorry, go ahead. Any opening thoughts on it?
I had never seen this film.
We've watched it together before.
No, we haven't.
Well, then I watched it by myself because it was halfway done on Disney Plus.
Then you watched it by yourself. Or you fast forwarded it to a part to show me Madam Mim.
No, we definitely...
Because I thought she was part of a different movie. And you're like, no, she was in da-da-da-da.
Well, on the contrary, we used to watch this movie a lot growing up. We had the VHS tape. In all honesty, I probably could have looked through my tapes in our collection, and we probably had this to display. It was a big film growing up for me. Watching it now, I didn't realize how short it was, but we'll get there on that. Any other thoughts before we dive right into it? All right. So this was actually the last animated film from the Walt Disney Productions Company to be released in Walt Disney's lifetime, because they're not releasing these. There's a good gap in between these, so that's sad. There's also The Sword and the Stone located in the Magic Kingdom near the carousel. But are we ready to dive right in? All right. So, like I said, this is an animated classic. This it starts off with an animated picture of the sword and the stone to whimsical and regal music in the credits. It does open with your storybook opening that you love so much. And the first thing you said was, I need to find that book, even though you've never seen this movie before. The legend is sung of when England was young. The king has died, and the heir of the throne is determined by who can pull the sword from the stone. The sword says, whoso pulleth out the sword of this stone and anvil is rightwise king born of England. So the whole premise is right there. Many have tried and failed, causing years and years to go by and the sword to almost be forgotten.
No king.
There's no king. So take that as you want. We meet a long white bearded character with a blue hat and an outfit, who's clumsily trying to get some water from a well. And we also meet his trusty owl friend, Archimedes is his name, the owl's name. And they, the old man, who we learn his name is Merlin the wizard, he is saying that he's waiting for someone who is supposed to arrive, but they do not know exactly who, just that it's a boy, a small boy.
10 to 11.
10 to 11. and we learn that, like I said, we learn that Merlin is the wizard,
Mhm.
which we already know from lore right there. But we meet him in this film. He's
Mhm.
very jubilant and clumsy. But so then we see a vision of who we're waiting for. It's a scrawny boy who is just beyond the forest. It then cuts to a large, like muscular bow and arrow yielding older boy, the older brother of, or the older cousin. I don't even know if it's the cousin or boy or whatever it
The
is.
adoptive
Yeah,
older
the
brother.
adopted older brother of the boy. The younger scrawny clumsy boy whose name is Arthur, like you said, but they call him Wart. He has to go into the forest to prove that he is not afraid, and he has to retrieve the arrow that he caused the older brother, whose name I wrote down later. Do you know what his name is?
I probably wrote it down.
We'll get to it after if you don't have it, but the older, like,
Mm, it wasn't Hector. It
no, that's the
was
dad.
Kay.
Kay. So Kay is the strong knight like brother, and then there's the scrawny
Like he's the
Wart,
actual son of Hector.
Hector. So he has to go into the wolf infested forest to prove that he is not afraid, and he has to retrieve the bow. Wart then trips into trips on a tree, and he falls through the roof of the white haired man from earlier, who was waiting for him. This is where we learn that the old man's name is Merlin, and so now we have Merlin, Archimedes the owl, and Wart.
Mhm.
And we all know I love Disney owls.
Mhm.
Merlin happens to be a wizard, like we said. He shows Wart things that he's seen that will be invented in the future, such as like a train,
Steam engine.
and there's like an airplane. Like he's building these things that will be invented in the future.
Mhm.
At this point, also the sugar pot comes to life,
Mhm.
and excuse me. Oh, the sugar pot comes to life and scoops itself into Wart's cup, and it keeps overfilling into Merlin's cup because he's too excited to say when.
Yeah. So 2 spoonfuls, and Wart says when.
Yeah.
And then he heads over to Merlin's cup and then just mounds it over the cup. As Merlin keeps talking about all these different classes of education.
Yeah.
And then he gets all confuddled and he's like, when? So, and then he just dumps it all out. And I thought, you just wasted all that sugar, sir.
Spoonful of sugar. There's actually a lot of similarities in this film to Mary Poppins, but we'll get there. So there you go. Wart is concerned with getting back to the castle. He has stuff to do.
Gotta go. Kitchen duty.
But so then Merlin's like, all right, fine, I'll go with you.
Mhm.
So then he starts to like cast a very fun song, like filled spell, where everything becomes small and floats into his bag for the journey. So that goes back to Mary Poppins right there, like the bag.
Mhm.
Everything in the bag.
Is there a theory on these movies being linked, or did you
no, I
notice
just
this?
was watching it this time.
Okay.
Every single kind of like the other film that we watched, Summer Magic, where I was like, this is definitely Carousel of Progress. But so he puts like the entire house is like in his suitcase now.
Mhm.
Every single thing got small, and even Archimedes' house, he had to like fly out of it. What?
You're just convinced that made the Carousel of Progress, and isn't the daughter in there named Nancy also? Is it Nancy?
Yeah, probably.
No. I think it was.
Okay, there you go. No, dude. When we come down to having to do a reference for all these films, we are doing the Carousel of Progress for that film. But
spoiler alert.
We're come back to this film. This one will be easy for reference because the sword is actually in the stone at Magic Kingdom. But either way,
you're gonna watch me pull it out.
Yeah, good luck. So this is where Merlin's talking to Wart, and he says, don't get foolish ideas that magic will solve all your problems. You have to get an education.
Mm.
So they're walking to the castle. The wolf is still trying to catch them to eat them on their journey.
And it's so funny. It's definitely comedic relief, the wolf is.
Yeah, it's like a very much like a Wile E. Coyote type
Yeah.
way of things. Um, we
Except Wart completely is oblivious to this wolf
mhm.
that's chasing him.
Yep. So then we get back to the castle and we see a large gentleman who is Sir Ector,
Mhm.
and his son, who was Kay, the burly man from earlier,
Mhm.
who's giving like he's like yelling at Kay for like losing war, and Kay's like he doesn't care. He's just like eating his dinner. He's like whatever, forget him, whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
because he went to go get the arrow.
mhm. So then Wart and Merlin arrive, and they get punished for disappearing. Like they lose some notches, and after they have to do some more dinner or some more dishes and stuff.
Mhm.
Um, Ector gives Merlin a hard time for pretending to be magical. So Merlin then makes a wizard blizzard and causes a Disney storm inside of the house, like a snowstorm inside of the house to convince him. Um, what
Wizard blizzard.
wizard blizzard? That's what they call it. I didn't make that up. So then they end up fighting over War, uh, and they make Merlin stay in like the guest tower, and it's like this like old falling apart like creepy northwest tower. Like there's no other way around it. Like it's just like falling apart.
And I thought to myself the whole time, why doesn't he use his magic to fix it?
Oh my god, the whole thing's like falling. It like sways, half it's missing. Um,
They lower the drawbridge at one point. It looked like the whole tower was just going to
mhm.
topple over.
It's also at this point
It would have caused me so much anxiety as a
where
child.
Kay is talking about how War will make a good chimney sweep, so that goes back into Mary Poppins right there. They're dipping their toes in Mary Poppins, so now we have
Hmm.
the bag, the sugar, and the chimney sweep. But um, they also overhear at this point that that someone is riding in to make a big announcement for the big news from London. So
Hmm.
Archimedes, my dear friend Owl over there, flies to spy on the big news.
Through the Disney storm.
Mhm.
That's outside.
That's right. So there's like a Disney storm going on, and he's like putting up like umbrellas everywhere to like
Yeah.
stop it coming into the house
And
because
he's like,
it's
oh, the guest room, the best room of the
yeah
house.
because it's just like it's like flooding.
He thinks he'll get rid of me easy,
Yeah.
and he won't. I'm sitting there
So
thinking, well, they put the drawbridge down, and he might.
um so Archimedes flies out to see what the big news is, and we learn that there's a big tournament on New Year's Day that the winner gets the crown.
Hmm.
So there's gonna be like a jousting tournament, like your typical like knights tournament.
Hmm.
Sir Ector wants his burly son Kay to win the crown.
Hmm.
But so then they start practicing for it, but the tournament it's not going as planned. Like Kay keeps messing up, he's falling off his horse, like the jousting machine is breaking, stuff like that.
Hmm.
So this is where
We discover Kay has no idea what he's doing.
no, he has a black eye. He has no idea what's going
Yeah.
on. Merlin, Archimedes, and Wart they go on a walk. Where Wart is talking about his goal to become a knight or a squire, and that's what they're like. No, you have to get your education.
Hmm.
So they start talking about imagination, and then Merlin turns Wart and himself into a flippity floppity fish.
Yes. I'm pretty sure that this fish was the inspiration for Flounder.
Maybe looked more like Nemo, but
Well, I mean, Nemo was inspired by Flounder.
okay. So they turn themselves into fishes.
It was just the color of Nemo.
Um, they sing a song about learning to swim.
Mhm.
Left and right, like day and night. That's what makes the world go round. Um, they get chased by other hungry sea creatures and fish.
A bullfrog.
Yep, one of the bullfrogs, and then like this giant like eel. It's electric.
Yeah, I don't think it was an eel
I don't know.
though. I think well, at first I thought it was a barracuda, but then I think he said it was something
Yeah, maybe it's
else.
a barracuda. That makes sense. Um,
Maybe a sterling, I think maybe is what they called it later.
yeah. So they get chased by this. Wart is then after they survive. Archimedes ends up helping Wart survive. Wart the fish. Wart then is getting yelled at for being late for his duties. So Merlin uses his magic to help Wart with his chores. He's like having like very much like in Fantasia, where like the dishes and the mops and stuff are doing their own thing.
Mm-hmm.
So Merlin helps with that magic. And then the next scene, they have been turned into squirrels, and they're practicing gravity in trees, even though gravity hasn't been invented yet. What do you want to say about the squirrel scene?
I thought it was rather comical, and this little red squirrel that's a girl just falls in love with the little Arthur
Wart squirrel.
squirrel. She was in love with him, and Merlin was trying to explain to him, well, to her, you're a him, and the him to her.
Yeah.
And I did find a little comical thing here in trivia facts about the squirrel scene. In the squirrel scene, Merlin transforms himself into a gray squirrel, while Wart turns into a red. In reality, gray squirrels were imported into England from their native North America no sooner than 1870s, after which they gradually dominated all of the forest and made the red squirrel almost extinct on British islands. The story, however, takes place apparently during the Middle Ages, long before that time. So it might have been a deliberate feature in the movie as Merlin in living through time backwards, like where he referenced like inventions
Yep.
from the future.
And
But
gravity.
yeah, but more explicit in the book, but referenced in the film through his mentioning of electricity.
I mean, that makes sense. What about the black squirrels?
They weren't in this movie.
Okay, so like you said, there's a girl squirrel who falls
Mhm.
in love and shows interest in a very confused squirrel, Wart. He
She was all over him, rubbing her face all over.
He shoots the poor squirrel down after she kisses him. They sing songs about phenomenons, but then at the same time, there's also another squirrel who's in love with Merlin, and he's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa!
I'm an old man. I'm an old man."
And then the wolf is back and trying to eat them. And then they turn themselves back into human form.
Wait, and the young girl squirrel saves Wart from the wolf.
Mm-hmm.
She risked her life for him.
She does, and then she's all cuddling up on him, and then he becomes a human, and she's all
like,
bummed out.
And then she cries.
Yeah, the poor lady squirrels. I wrote that.
Who cares about the other one? The girl, the young one. Oh, anyway.
So then it's at this time that Sir Ector finds the magic cleaning kitchens, and he thinks it's black magic, so he's very unhappy. Wart sticks up for Merlin, causing him to lose the title of squire, and that he gets told he can't go to London. And then Merlin teaches Wart that the world is actually round. And then this is where, after some fighting, Merlin puts Archimedes in charge of the education, because Disney owls are the best. And then Wart's like, I always wish I was a bird. So then Merlin turns Wart into a bird. And then this is the second Disney feature length film where we sing about learning to fly, because obviously in Peter Pan.
Yep.
Again, this time they almost get eaten by a hawk. Wart crashes into the house. Oh, so Wart is in the woods as a bird, and he crashes into a house. Mm-hmm. This is where we meet Madam Mim. Would you like to talk to us about Miss Madam Mim?
I thought she was in some dragon movie, and I was convinced that it was a whole different movie from this movie. And I'm pretty sure that's why we watched a scene from this movie. I've never seen this movie.
She's the best character in this film by far.
Yeah. But like I did put in my notes, like when we were watching it, I obviously realized I had never seen this movie, but I had known obviously some of the characters. Really, the only characters I knew were Arthur, Merlin, and Madam Mim. Mm-hmm. I didn't know any of the other characters.
Yeah.
So that's how I knew I hadn't seen it in entirety. I'd only maybe seen pieces of it, which was like the scene where Madam Mim and Merlin are having like a magical duel.
Mm-hmm. Which, yeah, we're almost there.
And she makes up her own rules.
Mm-hmm.
She is pretty funny. I don't know why they couldn't have ended up being friends, but
they should. Like, she should be so much more prominent in things. But
yeah, is she in anything else?
No.
Oh, well, that stinks.
So Archimedes and Mim, they're my favorites.
You can't be a pink dragon.
We'll get there. It's at this point that Mim thinks that she's more powerful in magic than Merlin. Mim, she finds delight in the gruesome and grim because she's the magnificent, marvelous, mad Madam Mim. That's what she is. She, but then she finds out that Wart is like learning from Merlin, so she wants to destroy Wart because she's Merlin's nemesis. And so she turns
and he must think you're special, so I have to get rid of you.
So she turns herself into a cat because he's a bird. So then they start chasing. But then before she can end up catching him, Merlin shows up, and they decide to have a wizard's duel. And a wizard's duel is where they can they have to step 10 paces, and then they can turn themselves into things to try to kill the other person.
But only animals.
Only animals. And then Mim's like, you can't turn yourself into like a pink dragon. You can't, I forgot, like no disappearing.
Yeah, no food, no something disappearing, else.
And yeah. So, but Mim instantly cheats.
She stretches her rules to herself and turns herself into a purple dragon.
And
then he said, you said you couldn't turn into a dragon. She said I couldn't turn into a pink dragon.
So they transform into various animals, right? Rhinos and fish and birds.
Your favorite. Rams.
Oh my god, that ram! Remember that movie? Oh my god, let's take a. I don't even remember what Truly Adventure film that was, but those stupid rams. Maybe those rams hit themselves in the head so hard that they're dreaming this film. Whatever.
Back to Merlin.
Yeah, back to Merlin, who probably also hit his head a bunch. God, those stupid rams. But in the end, Merlin is losing, and he disappears. And everyone's like, no disappearing. But really, he turned himself into a germ, causing Mim to get sick and causing him to be able to win. So then Mim in her human form is also sick. She has like green dots or some kind of dots all over her. And then that's where he says that knowledge and wisdom are the real power. That pretty much sums up the whole Madame Mim storyline here. So we're back at the castle. I think it's sometime around Christmas, kind of like when this film came out. And there's a snowstorm. And we learned that the replacement squire, because remember, Wart got the boot, has mumps. So maybe he was hanging out with Madame Mim and caught some of the germs. He has mumps.
The Black Plague.
Maybe. So Wart is back as the squire going to London, but this really upsets Merlin because Wart is going to go back on all the things that they've done.
He feels like he could do so much more. He's been training him to do so much more.
So then Merlin angrily transports himself to an undiscovered island, which is the island of Bermuda in the 20th century. And then Merlin's gone, and it cuts to the London tournament, which is on New Year's. But then we find out when it's Kay's turn to compete for the crown that so
sword.
Wart forgot Kay's sword. So then Wart's like, oh my god, I have to go get it. But he keeps
Archimedes to the rescue.
He can't get into the hotel because everybody from the hotel is watching the tournament. So then he's like trying to figure it out, and he goes over to the churchyard where he sees an anvil that has a sword in it, a stone that has a sword in it. And he touches it and it lights up, but he doesn't notice that. And then he just like grabs it out of the stone with ease.
My huge grab.
Mine too. Keep going. I know what you're gonna say.
Archimedes led him over there to it.
This is not what I'm gonna say.
And he touches the sword and he pulls it out, and then Archimedes is like, hurry, we got to give him the sword. Merlin and Archimedes know a lot about magic. How do they not know?
They also know the future.
Yes, but how do they not know the lore of said sword?
Well, can I talk about my gripe in this scene?
Sure.
The beginning of this entire film, they're singing the song about when they open the book, and they're talking about the story about how the king died and this and this and this, and no one can pull it out. And then they're like, and everything's gone into disrepair. And then they show the sword, and it's like all grown over and there's just vines everywhere because it's been
Maybe,
so long. But then
but
because of the tournament, it's just like a beautiful like sitting there.
yeah, maybe because of the tournament, they knew people were going to be in, and they're like, "Oh, we should clean this
Yeah.
up."
So it's so whatever. He pulls
Because
this.
we don't want to upset people and tell them that whoever wins the tournament is going to be the king, because it's really supposed to be the person that pulls
Mhm.
this out. But we should make this look nice.
So he pulls the sword out with ease. He has he but he has no idea the power that he yields with the sword. So he gives the sword to Kay for his tournament. But then everybody at the tournament stops and they're like, "Where'd you get that sword?" And he's like, "Oh, I pulled it from the stone."
He's like, "This isn't my sword."
Yeah, and he pulls it from the stone, and then somebody reads
Ector
Ector reads the
and said, "No, you didn't pull
the
this sword out of there.
the
Let's see
writing
you do
on
it
it.
again."
I don't know what the actual writing like.
The
What
inscription?
inscription on? That's what I couldn't think of.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So he reads it, which is the thing I read earlier about who soweth pulleth this out becomes the king. Born in England or whatever. So everyone at the tournament stops and they're like, that's the sword from the stone. Who pulled that out? And everyone's like, I did it. So they're like, all right, we have to go put it back in to see who can pull it out. Correct? So then everyone's like, oh, loophole. Since it's been pulled out once, it's going to pull out easy again. So everyone's like, I want to be the first person to do it. Kay try to do it. All the other people are like, I'm going to be the king because I'm going to be the one to pull it out. But none of them can pull it out because once it's back in the stone, Kay and all the other knights can't pull it out.
Only the true king.
And then they're like, all right, well,
pull it out.
We'll see if War is actually telling the truth. And he walks up and he pulls it out with ease.
I hope he did.
He pulls it right out with ease. And then this is where it then says that his actual name is Arthur, not Wart. All hail King Arthur, and they all bow down to their new king. The glorious reign of King Arthur has begun. But Arthur, no longer Wart, Arthur, he's nervous. He's like, I'm just a kid. I'm a clumsy kid.
I don't want to do this. I'm gonna run away.
So he's sitting on the throne. He's like, I'm gonna run away. Tries to run out one door, but everybody's like, all hail the king, all hail the king. So he's like, I only want the back. Opens the back door. Everyone's like, King Arthur, King Arthur. So he's like, oh my gosh, I really wish Merlin was here, would show up. So then at the same time, kind of like that scene in Aladdin, and many years from now, when the genie comes back, Merlin comes back, and he's just very much vacation decked up from hanging out in Bermuda. But Merlin's just like, Arthur, you're going to be one of the greatest kings ever. They're going to write books and motion pictures about you, which is this motion picture right here. Even though that motion pictures have not been invented yet. And they say, all hail King Arthur. And the film ends. It was quick. It was all over the place. It didn't build anything. But I would like to hear your thoughts and ratings and stuff like that.
So I kept thinking that there was something weird going on.
Mary Poppins.
And that Arthur was going through puberty or something.
Because his voice changes?
Yes. And
his voice changes, yeah.
Yeah. So I wasn't too sure what was going on. Apparently, he was actually voiced by 3 different boys.
I noticed it too. Why didn't you tell me this earlier?
Ricky Sorensen, Richard Retherman, and Robert Retherman. The changes in the voice are very noticeable in the film because of the way Arthur's voice keeps going from broken to unbroken, sometimes in the same scene. One of the easiest noticed is in the last scene in the throne room when Arthur is asked, in his voice, changed voice, says, "Oh, Archimedes, I wish Merlin was here." Then the camera cuts further back and Arthur shouts in unchanged voice, "Merlin, Merlin." Yeah, like one of the voices was like way deeper, and then one of them was like a little kid boy, and I was like, what is going on? But apparently it was because he was voiced by 3 different people. But I don't know like why they would have done that.
I don't know. I noticed it too.
Yeah, so that was...
It kind of sounded like
he was going through puberty.
Like you put a record on the wrong speed. Like it was like it was like, I don't know, it was weird. But go ahead.
Okay. So anyway, This was Walt's last
Mhm.
animated film
Because we're quickly approaching that
because he died
sad
during
year.
the production of The Jungle Book. So
Yeah.
this was
He
his
touched
last.
Jungle Book though.
He did touch it, but he died during the filming of it
Yeah.
or in the production of it. And then Walt Disney never knew it, but Bill Peet modeled Merlin after him. Pete saw them both as argumentative, cantankerous, but playful and very intelligent. So
Speaking
Pete gave Merlin Walt's nose.
speaking of because there's a lot of like famous voices in this film,
Yep.
like girl from Mary, or I'm sorry, the girl from 101 Dalmatians, and just different people. The rabbit from Winnie the Pooh, and
Mhm.
just a bunch of different. The voice of Winnie the Pooh, I'm sorry, the narrator of Winnie the Pooh. But Earl Ravenscroft was one of the voices, and that's the guy who plays in the Haunted Mansion. He's like one of the singing busts that you always think is Walt. Sorry, go ahead. Okay.
Anyway. And this is the second instance where Walt unknowingly served as the purpose of a wizard, because the first of it was in Fantasia when
With
he
the
was in
backwards
Sid.
name. Yeah.
Let's see. This is the only animated Disney movie from the 1960s. It's not to have yet had a platinum DVD or a sequel or a TV show or a live action remake. And then
Because no one uses Madam M. Continue.
many elements of Sleeping Beauty have been recycled into films such as The Sword and the Rose, or The Sword and the Stone.
Don't make me watch Sword and the Rose again, please. Thank you.
The whole time I kept thinking the other one when we were watching, or this one when we were watching that one. Anyway, so The Sword and the Stone, which reuses opening credit backgrounds, medieval setting, and various animated sequences. Three most noticeable are King Hubert, who resembles Sir Ector, the owl from the fourth scene, who would inspire Archimedes, and Maleficent in dragon form. For sure.
That's 100%.
That led to Madame Mim in her dragon form. Interestingly, Ector and Pellinore laughing animation was recycled from King Hubert and King Stefan from Sleeping Beauty. And then the roof of Madame Mim's house is designed to resemble a witch's traditional black hat, if you didn't notice that. And then several American critics complained over the decision to portray Arthur with an American accent, because everybody else has a British accent in the film. This was also the fourth Disney animated film set in the United Kingdom, following Alice in Wonderland, Peter Pan, and 101 Dalmatians.
Which is what I said, remember? Because those are my top three right there. Remember, I was like, oh, I just like films that were based there. Well, we're going to break that train, but continue.
I think that's all I had.
All right, so then what
for
did you...
little trivia things
what
that
did
I
you
thought
rate
was
it?
interesting.
Oh, what did you think?
This was the first Disney animated feature with songs from the Sherman Brothers. This pair created some of the studio's best songs going into the decade, probably the most famous of which are the songs from Mary Poppins. Like
correct, and they did the songs for the movie we just watched, Summer Magic and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I enjoyed it. It was definitely the first time I'd ever seen it all the way through, and not just like the Madame Mim scene. Sorry. I gave it an 8 out of 10. IMDb gave it a 7.1 out of 10.
So does it make
it does not magically pop up on my list.
So what is your list upon a star?
The same as it was last week.
Which is?
Jeffrey. No, I'm just kidding. 101 Dalmatians, The Parent Trap, Sleeping Beauty, Dumbo, Lady and the Tramp, The Three Caballeros, Moon Pilot, The Shaggy Dog, Peter Pan, and Alice in Wonderland.
So I watched this movie a lot. Again, I probably own this on VHS. It's just very nostalgic for me, but I had to think about it if I was willing to knock off the Swiss Family Robinson for it. And I guess no, I'm not, because rewatching this film, it's so short. It's so all over the place. Like I love Merlin, but it just leaves a lot to be desired. Like, I think that they should have just made a whole entire film about Merlin, or made a whole entire film about Madame Mim. But either way, I am not ready to knock off my number 10 yet. So my list upon a star is 101 Dalmatians, Peter Pan, Alice in Wonderland, Babes in Toyland, Pinocchio, The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, The Sleeping Beauty, Lady and the Tramp, and The Swiss Family Robinson. Now, I think, and I could be wrong because I didn't do research on this, but I think this is the first Disney animated classic that did not make either of our lists. How wild is that?
It could be. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, because you gave some of the animal ones in the beginning that were animated onto your list. I didn't put onto mine, but yeah, I don't know. This is maybe, but either way, thanks for hanging out with us. Again, we are on Instagram, we are on Spotify, we are on YouTube. We have the Deep Dive in the Magic Pod at gmail.com. Again, thank you to Mr. Andy Has a Band for our theme song. Thank you for spending your Valentine's Day with us. I hope that we got to bring you and yours some cheer on Valentine's Day. Our next film, we have made it to the year 1964. It's a Christmas miracle because this is a Christmas film. Remember, we made it to the year 1964 for the 69th Disney feature-length film, and that is titled A Tiger Walks. Will that be making our list? We will find out next time. Again, happy Valentine's Day. Thank you for this Christmas miracle of a film. And A Tiger Walks is next.
Thanks for Deep Diving the Magic.
Bye.
Bye.